to our chapter on Essentials of Control, where we introduce the basics of controls in organizations, meaning the processes and systems by which our company influences its subunits and employees to behave and take action in ways that will lead us to meet our set goals and objectives. We know that our managers work within the POLC, planning, organizing, leading, and controlling framework, with the fourth facet being organizational control. Organizational controls should really provide two basic functions for organizations. Firstly, controls should help managers determine if their strategy is achieving desired results. Secondly, they should be an early warning system in cases where the organization is getting off track, whether that's a little bit or a lot. You see the book, The Checklist Manifesto here. That was written by Dr. Gawande, who is a medical doctor. He wrote the book to talk about how doctors need checklists before surgeries and how so many other industries and occupations use checklists. Very simple control. For instance, airline pilots and flight crews would also use checklists to make sure that their flight is successful and safe. So, the topics that we will be discussing is firstly, defining what organizational control is to make sure we understand it. And then we will take a look at the costs and benefits of organizational control. So to start with our definition, organizational control is the process by which an organization influences its subunits and members to behave in ways that lead to the attainment of organizational goals and objectives. If these controls are properly designed, they can be very helpful to make sure we have better performance for the company. That is, controls really enable the organization to better execute its strategy. Effective control procedures also allow managers to monitor and regulate actions so that we can align performance with expectations, much like those airline pilots who manage numerous controls to complete a successful flight. As with everything though, managers must weigh the costs and the benefits of control. There will take some resources to make sure that we have the right controls and that we measure our performance and then compare them accordingly and take action. That is what we see here in the right box listing our organizational controls. There are 4 steps involved. Firstly, we establish the standards. Secondly, we measure the performance. Thirdly, we compare performance standards to the actual performance. And then we take corrective action as needed. So, if your measured performance meet the established standards, you're pretty good. You're even better if your measured performance exceeds the established standards. However, if that performance is not meeting or exceeding the standards, we might have to take corrective action, as you see in number 4. And this can be anything from actually changing the performance standards themselves, setting them higher or lower, or finding new standards maybe, or working with the person or the department or their team to make sure that their performance get improved, whether that is additional resources or training, revision of the goals, etc. Things such as team cohesion, culture, climate as well impact how we're actually performing in an organization. Interestingly though, we typically pay most attention to organizational controls when they are missing, which is what we saw, for example, in the 2008 meltdown of the US financial markets. That was bad. Or the lack of stricter controls, some people would argue, in the spread of COVID-19 around the globe. There's also a couple of books on this slide, the How to Measure Anything by Hubbard and the Measure What Matters that looks at the OKRs used by Google, Intel, and others. That was written by John Doerr. Both are really terrific if you want to take a look at objectives, goals, and standards. So as we've seen, organizational controls provide benefits to companies, especially when they help the company stay on track with respect to its strategy. External stakeholders too, such as governments, investors, maybe even the public, have an interest in seeing that certain types of controls are in place. That's a safeguard, right? However, controls bring a cost. So trade-offs must be made between whether or not we are going to have controls in the company, and we need to balance the trade-offs among the different types of controls, whether there are financial controls, non-financial controls, etc., that we have in our company. Those we will talk about in another video. But before we close here today, let's take a look at our key costs and benefits. As we've said, controls can be costly in several ways, including financially. There can be damage to culture and reputation. There can be decreased responsiveness, and there can also be failed implementation. So an example of the first one, the financial cost, is the fact that organizations are often required to, I was going to say always, but I'm sure there's some exception out there, required to perform and report the results of their financial audits. And these audits need to be undertaken by accountants, right? So often we use external accounting firms here in the United States like Deloitte or KPMG, global organizations, of course, or smaller independent accounting offices. And we have to pay for them. The organization has to pay for them, right? And these audits are a way for banks, investors, any other key stakeholder to make sure that they understand the firm's financial health. For instance, if the company wants to borrow money from banks or if they have investors, they can only access or obtain these benefits if they have the financial audit that shows they're healthy financially. Controls can also have costs in terms of culture and reputation. For instance, we are measuring employees' performance and we track employee behaviors in organizations. And that can certainly give some benefit to the organization because they are paying attention to what the employees are doing to make sure that productivity is there. However, implementing very strict monitoring efforts, micromanagement, listening in on phone lines can have really undesirable cultural consequences in form of reduced employee loyalty, greater turnover, etc. People just do not like when they are constantly tracked and measured and they have no autonomy. Thirdly is responsiveness. So another potential cost of having controls is that they can afford less organizational flexibility and responsiveness. Controls are put in place to prevent problems, but controls can also create problems, right? They take time, they take effort, all of which reduce responsiveness for the organization. And then finally, for the key costs, failed implementation, which happens when controls are poorly understood so that their existence creates significant unintended negative consequences. So for instance, the textbook talks about Hershey Food, which is a chocolate and candy maker in the United States. When they put a new computer-based control system in place, there were so many problems with that installation that they could not fulfill a very large percentage of their holiday, Halloween, seasonal chocolate and candy sales for that year. When they finally got the controls in working order, the downtime that implementation had created amounted to very large costs for the company because of the inefficiencies that happened and the lost sales that was a consequence of that. Additionally, some controls might also interfere with other controls. Such an example would be when a new quality control system can improve product performance, but it might also delay product deliveries to customers. So as we've seen, there's always trade-offs, and so we have to think carefully about which measures we want to include for controls and how costly they will be and what consequences there might be from those controls. Although costs are common with controls, most controls are valid and they really do act as a valuable management tool. So they also bring benefits, especially when they're well designed and correctly implemented. There are 5 possible areas of benefits. Firstly, improved cost and productivity control. Secondly, improved quality control. Third, opportunity recognition. Fourth, better ability to manage uncertainty and complexity. And finally, and fifth, better ability to decentralize decision making. So for the cost and productivity control, strong controls will help the organization to be efficient, and they can also act more effectively by helping managers control costs and productivity levels. Costs can be controlled through things such as budgets, where managers can compare the actual expenses with the forecasted expenses. Productivity can also be controlled by comparing how much each person can produce in terms of service or products. So the textbook talks about McDonald's, the fast food restaurant, and productivity at a McDonald's restaurant. That might depend on the speed of the order taker. So when you place your order, how quickly the person can take your order. And when the meal is prepared, how quickly can you wrap a hamburger? So McDonald's can look across all of the restaurants to identify a target speed for taking an order or wrapping a hamburger, and then they can measure each store's performance on these dimensions, on these controls. And that is a benefit to make sure that we lower the costs and increase productivity at a place like McDonald's. Second benefit of controls is quality. Increasingly, quality can be quantified in terms such as response time, for instance, how long does it take to prepare a hamburger, or accuracy, did the burger actually weigh a quarter pound? Other organizations and industries, such as the automobile industry, use quality controls. Toyota, for instance, as the textbook talks about, tracks the quality of its cars according to hundreds of quantified dimensions, including things such as how many defects a car has. Some of the measures can also be qualitative, such as how delighted was the customer with the car that they bought? How delighted are they with the dealer service? Quality control can contribute to cost control, customer satisfaction, as well as greater sales. The third area is opportunity recognition. For instance, when Nestle, which is the world's largest food and beverage company, purchased the much smaller Carnation Company to get to its ice cream business. Nestle wanted the Carnation Company for the ice cream business. What they found was, through the financial controls that they went through in the acquisition, they found that the pet food business was even more profitable than the ice cream business. And even though they had been thinking about selling off the pet food line of products, they decided to keep both. So Nestle purchased Carnation for the ice cream and then also kept pet food line. And that was an opportunity that was unseen prior to employing those financial controls. The fourth area of benefit is that controls can help organizations manage uncertainty and complexity. Perhaps the most easily understood example of this type of benefit is how financial controls can help an organization navigate economic downturns and recessions. Without budgets and productivity controls in place, companies might not even know that they have been losing sales or that expenses are out of control until it's too late. So tracking the numbers will help the organization manage uncertainty and downturns. Fifth and final area of benefit is related to decentralized decision making. Decentralized decision making happens when the organization pushes authority and decision making rather down to those who are closest to the action. Organizational researchers have long been saying that performance will happen at the highest levels when those individuals and areas that are closest to the customer and closest to the pockets of uncertainty have the ability to respond to them quickly. So for instance, it would be difficult to give a McDonald's store manager information about the store's performance and choices if the information about that performance was only compiled at the city level or regional level or corporate level or country level, right? When you have store level performance tracking or even maybe hourly tracking of sales and hamburger wrapping time, the performance within a specific store, McDonald's can give these store managers this information very quickly and so that they can respond to local demand. This is decentralized decision making and is a key benefit of measurement. As an example, one mark of quality control is receiving the Malcolm Baldrige Performance Excellence Program Award. This is an award that is given by the US President to organizations in a wide range of categories and industries, from education to ethics to manufacturing. The companies are being judged in 7 areas. 1 is leadership, 2nd is strategic planning, 3rd is customer and market focus, 4th is measurement, analysis, and knowledge management. 5th is human resource management. 6th is process management. And finally, results themselves, number 7. So controlling how well the organization measures and analyzes its processes is a key criteria for winning this prestigious award. Alrighty, so here are 4 different questions that you can use to check your knowledge of what we just went over. Wish you all the best. See you at the next one. Bye-bye.